What's up, YouTube members? Good to be back. I'm excited to show you this little hot tip that I've got about working on getting our back hip down the fall line as we are in our turn. So the first thing we want to talk about is if we've got a fall line in front of us, which is basically, if I haven't talked about it in any previous videos that you've seen, is essentially if I roll a ball down the hill, where is it going to go? So on a normal slope, if it's pretty even across and I roll the ball down the center, it's going to go right down the center, and that's our fall line. So for the purposes of this video, let's just think about what we call single fall line. There's only one direction that ball is going to roll. Now, when we're in a telemark turn, body position is everything, and specifically body position from the waist down. We don't really want to have a lot of motion waist up. We want to kind of keep the body quiet. And so what I'm going to show you today is something that's going to help you be able to sort of practice on the hill when you've got some extra time to focus on getting your hip in the correct position. So as I turn this way, the fall line is down this direction, and I'm going to go into a telemark stance. So right now, both of my hips are facing perpendicular to the fall line. And what I actually want to do is this backside over here, this hip, I want this hip to actually be turned towards the fall line. Now, obviously our bodies, if your legs aren't moving, it's hard to get this hip all the way around, but you get the idea. The rotation needs to happen at the hips so that we're going towards the fall line. Now, one thing I always talk about is imagining that our belly button is tied to something at the bottom of the fall line. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is how can you practice this so you know that your hip is going downhill. So a lot of times my head can turn, but my hips aren't turned, okay? And you'll see my shoulders are also squared up this direction as well. So I want to make sure that not only my shoulders are turning, but this back hip is also turning as well and going down the hill. So something we can do is use a set of poles. Poles are a great tool as a skier, but when we're learning telemark especially, sometimes they can get in the way. But this is one really good way that we can use them to our advantage. So I've got some poles here. They've got straps, okay? What I'm gonna do is turn this pole upside down, and I'm gonna feed it through the straps so that it's through the basket, okay? So it's got a little bit of a catch. And then I'm gonna take this strap and I'm gonna compress it over either the end is fine, or if you can get it over the basket, depends on how much your poles flex. So I'm just gonna leave it there. So I've got it fastened on this end and this end. This is going to work as almost a set of wings that allow our peripheral vision to be able to see and indicate what our hips are doing. So obviously as my hips move, the poles also move with me. And that's what we need when we're skiing down, when we're practicing this, getting our hip in the correct position. And this will help us actually see it in the corner of our eye so we can ski and try this. So let's go back to this position where I'm across the fall line. I'm in a good telemark stance. You can see these wings are basically running the direction of the fall line, okay? What I want to do is turn that hip and face this back hip again down the fall line. You'll notice that this is now at an angle, okay? And then as I come up and go into the next turn, I'm already thinking about this hip coming forward that way, okay? Now, if I make the switch from here, where I've got my hip correct, and I just turn, and now it's running with the direction of the fall line, I know that I haven't turned my hips and I need to make that adjustment. So basically that's how you can use your poles. This is a great practice for everyone, but especially intermediate and beginner telemark skiers that may not need their poles for much other than just pushing across the flats. And so now we're gonna head on over, get on the mountain, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like on the slope. Okay, so we did the dry land stuff. I showed you how to fasten your poles with pole straps and how to put them on you. Now we're gonna get on the slope and show you exactly how you wanna be watching the poles in your periphery to make sure that your hip is in the correct place. So I obviously don't have straps on my poles, but I'm gonna still do the same thing and just kind of hold them on my waist. So you're gonna put them top to bottom like this, and I'm just gonna hold them just like this as I demonstrate. Okay, so I'm gonna get a little speed here. I've got my poles intact. Now I'm in my telemark stance. Now you can see my poles are not where they should be. I need to go across the fall line so that uphill hip is twisted. And in this particular exercise, I'm just gonna go to a nice pizza, nice snow plow to get me across. And I'm gonna make sure those poles stay in my periphery again so I can see them. Now the difference would be, I don't wanna be like this, going across the hill, I wanna be like this. I'm gonna come up. And you can see the poles are kind of like at an angle across my body. And I can see them out of the corner of my eye, and it's super easy and just kind of lets me know where I'm at. Now as I come here, I'm already going belly button downhill and making my way across. And basically that's what's gonna happen. You're just gonna go over and over again and use these as indicators. Now, as you start feeling you're getting better hip position where the uphill hip is down the hill, then you can probably move away from using the poles in this manner because you don't really need them, but it just keeps them out of the way and makes it so it's better. So the next step in this is really thinking about why that's important. There's a lot of things that we could talk about, but the biggest one is what I see in beginner and intermediate telemark skiers, and that's this. When you're going across the hill, a lot of times if this uphill hip is not turned downhill, this uphill hand can sometimes end up dragging, okay? Like this. A couple things can happen. That can make it so you may be experiencing where it feels like the turn just keeps going and then your tails wash out. And that's a problem, and the reason it's happening is because as you're turning, you're just letting your arm hang back here and basically follow it, and it's continuing that way. By keeping everything forward and keeping this hip pointing downhill, that really allows us to get on our edges and really be able to use our skis correctly. Also makes initiating the next turn a lot easier. So I hope this video helped. Appreciate your membership on YouTube, and we'll see you next time. Spread telemark always, my friends. See you later.